This is White Plains Week, the weekly news roundup. With your moderator, John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And Peter Katz, noted broadcaster and journalist. White Plains Week. What's happened? Who are the newsmakers? And what's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains and Westchester, and all you graduates out there. Congratulations, John Bailey, the City News Roundup Show, White Plains Week, with Peter Katz, the anchor for all seasons, on my right, and on my left, the journalist, the dean of journalism at the School of Journalism in White Plains, Jim Benerofe, who's been with me since the beginning, 16 years ago when we started this program. And right now, let's go to Jim Benerofe with the headlines.
And here are the stories for Memorial Day weekend. City to stage annual Memorial Day parade Monday at 10 a.m. Summer heat wave abruptly ends cold, wet spring. County beaches open, but not the pools. Trumps. Con Ed Solutions begins White Plains Sustainable Westchester service June 1st. Sears, the fixture retailer in White Plains, sees appliance business seriously in trouble in dismal first quarter, may go out of business. White Plains sales tax receipts decline 10% in a month from March to April, on track for $50 million. County sells off land near Stu Leonard's, Costco, Home Depot in Yonkers to plug first quarter $17.6 million sales tax receipts gap after anticipating 14% growth. White Plains Schools declared lead-free. Loucks Field gets public restrooms in time for Loucks games. Children's Museum hosts school groups.
At Playland, I'm sorry, I should have said that.
School groups at Playland.
Right, yeah.
Bill to prevent eviction of seniors from assisted living homes, repurposing themselves, introduced in legislature. Stephen Cohn becomes first man to be president of the White Plains League of Women Voters. Rose Riken, senior in the White Plains High School class of 2016, wins $7,500 grand prize in the financial centers in Westchester County, financial centers of New York competition. White Plains television personality and assistant county attorney John Vorparian given a day for himself in Westchester County. White Plains celebrates reading of the Declaration of Independence on former Village Green on North Broadway, June 18th. Lois Braun's Children's Center celebrates 50 years. Women's Club Jazz in the Gardens coming up June 9th.
Thank you, Jim. And right now we'll go to the White Plains Week World Newsreel March of Time for May 27th as we begin the Memorial Day weekend observance. That, of course, is the soldiers in the White Plains Rural Cemetery, which will be the endpoint for the Memorial Day parade on Monday at 10.
And we should make note that Memorial Day is one holiday, which is not a holiday at White Plains parking meters.
Is there ever a holiday for White Plains parking meters?
You know, people who come
Sunday.
into town to see the parade, to maybe participate in the ceremony at the cemetery, figure that it's a national holiday.
But it's not.
But it's not here in White Plains.
At least
you
for the
have to
parking
feed the
department.
meters. It's a very lucrative day for the city, snagging people who think they don't have to put money in the meters on
Right,
Memorial
so-
Day. Happens every year.
Be warned. Be warned. And next shot up we have heat. Big heat. Yesterday we hit up to 87 around 2 p.m. and the rhododendrons were flourishing at the White Plains Citizenette Reporter World Headquarters. And truly, I mean, everybody was thinking, where are we going to cool off next night?
Look, the conversation is what happens
That
this
is the
spring.
only pool
it's
that's
summer
filled,
already.
and that is over at the Babs of Caracalla, and
What?
the Babs of Caracalla.
I don't think anyone knows what you're talking
That's
about. John.
Lifetime Fitness over, and what is interesting though, that will be open tomorrow, but it's a private pool. But anyway,
Yeah, if you're
it
a member-
shows
if
you
you're a
you
member of
can
the
get
club,
these things
if you're
ready.
a member of the club, you can use it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
But
the
reason-
membership
the
is
reason
huge.
to mention that is
Yes.
knowing that it's going to be a hot summer weekend, possibly hitting 90 degrees on Memorial Day itself. The county and the city of White Plains, for that matter, have been totally non-responsive in working overtime to get the pools filled and open so that people who want to cool
It
off
is really
can enjoy them.
It is really too bad because you have very few weekends where it's really warm enough or nice enough, and at least a couple of days this weekend are going to be nice. But what can I say? I mean, why can't you just order the tanker of pool water, fill it, and that's it? I mean, I don't understand why the county insists on not filling their pools on Memorial Day as they used to do. It's been going on for a while.
The beach will be open, though, right?
That's right. In fact, this is the Rye Playland Beach adjacent the Ryetown Park Beach, which was filled with folks when we saw it
That's
the other
adjacent to
day.
Playland, but
That's
it's
right.
not for everyone. It's only for the village
Ryetown
residents, or you happen
right.
to be a friend of
Right.
someone.
But the beaches are looking good, and the Playland Beach will be open, but the pool will not be. Now, moving along on more interesting matters, Mr. Trump's this week. Peter, the Trump moment, please.
Well, as of yesterday, there were some non-aligned delegates who defected to Trump and said that we will support him at the convention, and therefore, if you do the count, that gives him the number of delegates he needs to get the nomination on the first ballot at the Republican National Convention coming up. And what we have seen is that very, very slowly now, people who were reluctant to support him on the Republican side are coming out in support of him. Just this morning, Marco Rubio, who you may remember, Trump denigrated, tore him apart during the Republican debates, calling him Little Marco.
Yes, or something like that.
They got into a little dispute about the size of certain body parts. Total embarrassment. So Marco Rubio has now fallen in line and says that he would be pleased to speak in favor of Trump at the convention.
Yes, looking down the road, not burning bridges.
You think
yes.
Marco Rubio realizes that, hey, I gave up my seat to run for president. I didn't make it in the primary running for president. Now, if there's a Trump administration, I'd better set things up so I can get a job?
I
You don't
think a
think
lot
he-
of people
you don't
are
think
thinking
he
that
thought
way. Yeah, the Koch brothers are going to be unemployed.
It also came out this week that Chris Christie, who has fallen in line behind Trump, and for a time was said to be one of Trump's close advisors on political matters, has set himself up, possibly, to participate in a Trump administration, should that happen. That happened
What
as
could
a
he
new
be?
as a new poll came out, which showed that Chris Christie, who at one time was riding high as being admired and liked by both Republicans and Democrats, now has reached all-time lows in popularity.
Yeah, perhaps Secretary of Transportation.
I think Christie would like to be the vice presidential candidate, but whether that happens or not, who knows?
But he knows traffic.
No, I don't think that. I don't think that Christie even thinks that. And I'll tell you why. He's in New Jersey. It's the next door state. They would have to pick somebody from down south or out in the Midwest, but they're not going to
Ted
pick.
Cruz, for example.
Well, Christie actually was on Trump's short list of possible candidates, so we hear. However, we have to keep in mind that Trump has now said that if he were to select a woman or a Hispanic or someone of other narrow focus to be his running mate rather than a white male, that would be pandering. So his indication was that he would not do that. However, shortly after he made that statement, people on his campaign started sourcing stories saying that he didn't really mean to say that.
Well, we do not really know what Mr. Trump means.
Really does mean when he says
whenever
a lot of
he
things.
says something. But that's what makes it a fun story to a point.
For example, he suggested that I would like to debate Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders said, great, I'd love to do it. Now, you think Trump expected him to say, no, never, I would never get on a stage with Donald Trump?
But now he's suggesting he has turned the tables.
So Trump now says that, well, he'll debate Bernie Sanders, but only if they can raise $10 million for women's causes, as he put it.
Well, the Clinton campaign ought to be able to donate that like that, right?
And then when Bernie Sanders said, fine, we'll do it, and we should do it in the biggest arena we can find to hold as many people as we can, Trump said, well, fine, but now the price is $15 million.
Well, wouldn't it be funny if Clinton offered to pay $15 million?
The Clinton Foundation ought to do that. They do the philanthropic work all the time, wouldn't you think? Now, moving right along, those of you in White Plains may have received this little double postcard in the mail within the last week, and it is a notification from our pals at Con Ed. Congratulations on selecting CCA Con Ed Solutions as your new energy services company for electricity supply effective in June. We're writing to confirm that Con Edison will provide you a single bill, and so that means that the big experiment will begin.
Well, I don't know that it's an experiment. It's a business operation that's going on here, whereby the city of White Plains, along with some other municipalities, agreed that all users of residential electricity from Con Edison and small businesses who use electricity from Con Edison would become customers of something called Sustainable Westchester.
Right. Now, we have asked the Con Edison and also Sustainable Westchester, what is the count now in White Plains specifically as to how many people are coming on over to
You had the
Sustainable
opportunity
Westchester?
to opt out, to say, no, I don't want to do this.
They're working on the figures now.
I have another question. If you already have an ESCO,
Yes. You're not part of it. You are relieved from having to participate if you already have your own deal with it.
But you can
with an
also
energy
opt
service
in
company.
to switch into them.
You could
Yes,
you
that's
could
right.
opt into
That was
it.
under the options.
Anyone can opt into it at any time. The interesting thing, which we found out a few weeks ago, and I believe we're the first to report, is that while you are now buying your electricity from Consolidated Edison Company of New York, if you go in to this deal with Sustainable Westchester, you would then become a customer of something called Con Ed Solutions, which is a part of Con Edison
subsidiary. Right.
So you're switching from one supplier to essentially the same supplier, except under a different name.
Right.
A different corporate entity or something.
Right, and you will also be paying more.
In some cases, you will be paying more.
That's right. If you opt for the White Plains fall-through option,
Well,
which is all green.
The default option is that you will use electricity generated by so-called green sources, wind, solar,
Well, we'll see.
hydro.
We may not be on next week because I won't have electricity. You never know.
You never know is right.
Right, I hope I do.
And if you don't have electricity and we're not on, just look for the smoke signals.
Now, another business story.
Oh, by the way, one other thing about
What's
Trump,
that?
since I mentioned smoke signals, he had the effrontery to refer to Elizabeth Warren as Pocahontas.
Really?
Yes, very insulting.
Well,
Because she does have some Indian heritage, actually.
no, I did not
Yeah.
know that.
And she
Wow.
has been speaking out on behalf of Hillary Clinton against Trump.
So
Anyway.
he actually supports the Washington Redskins team name then, right?
I don't know.
But ask him that question.
I don't know.
Now, an important business story which appeared yesterday under the byline of Haley Peterson of Business Insider is that Sears is losing its last hope for staying in business.
Well,
that's his headline.
That's their
Well, let
headline.
me explain this.
That's not our headline.
No,
that's
it's
theirs.
not. But he reports that this was the sales are continuing to fall, and Sears' one hope for survival, its home appliances business, is now in decline. And in fact, the results were not good. On Thursday, its profit improved slightly in the most recent quarter due to trimmed expenses, but sales declined 8.3%. Kmart's same-store sales dropped 5%, and Sears' domestic same-store sales fell 7.1%. Now,
Well, as we all know, Sears is an anchor
Yeah.
at the Galleria in
Right.
White Plains,
Yeah.
and therefore it is quite important to the economy of not only the Galleria, but to White Plains itself in terms of sales tax collections. If Sears should have to liquidate or severely cut back, that could be an issue affecting White Plains. Should the White Plains store be one of those, which would have to be closed in some sort of consolidation.
right, and the
or cutback.
Galleria, as we know, owned by Norton Simon, right, Jim?
Simon, yeah.
Simon.
Yeah, Simon. It's Norton Simon. Anyway, that would make sense why they perhaps are trying to get rid of it.
Well, we don't know if
That's right.
anyone's trying to
Right.
get rid of anything.
Well,
This is-
the mayor has
it's a-
said they have a couple of suitors, but they haven't
Well, you're talking about
consummated the
selling
deal.
the mall.
That's right, the
There's
mall.
been talk about that for
Well, the
some
mayor
time.
said they have
Yeah,
some
but
buyers.
there's been no deal, though.
Well, it hasn't been consummated.
As Donald Trump would say, there's no deal until there's a deal.
That's true. Now, let's go to something intriguingly more interesting, and that's sales tax receipts. And White Plains sales tax receipts we received from the Department of Taxation and Finance in New York. And in March of this year, we earned $4,364,000. But in April, 1 month later, only $3,896,000. That is down 10.7% in
Well,
one
the
month.
significant thing is the
Yeah.
year-over-year results,
Yeah.
and we see that
Yeah.
this April it was down almost 4% from
Yeah.
last April.
Right.
So once again, we have to ask what's happening here.
We have to cross our fingers and hope that May and June are big-time months with the warmer weather coming in, and of course, rising gas prices. I predict $3 a gallon.
Well, there
by the end
is
of
some suspicion on a national basis that the economy is slowing down a little bit as gas prices rise because people have lost some of their expendable income. Some of their discretionary spending now has to be spent at the gas pump once again.
You have any comment?
What are
on-
you paying for gas,
Oh.
Jim?
Gas prices are I think, are still, they're under $3.
They are under $3, about $2.60. For
Generally, I've seen around
$2.69 for regular.
$2.60 or so. Have you about the same?
Yeah, I think that's...
But that is like up from under.
When you were down in Florida a couple of weeks ago, what was it at the gas pumps down there generally in a rough area? Close to the 260 we're seeing?
I don't really remember. I think gas down there is cheaper than it is up here, though.
It better be, because there's really no mass transit in Florida, so to speak, right? Except around Miami.
Well,
The mass transit is the highway.
yeah.
They have
I'm
red
reading a
light
book
cameras down there?
on the railroad industry in Florida, and it was one of the most active railroad. Of course, this goes
Well,
back.
Flagler, when he was developing it in the early part of this last century, built railroads.
There was a lot of railroads down there, and they were. I used to go to Florida by railroad, so.
Those were the days. Right. Now, and speaking of sales tax, the county made a sell-off this week on the land near Stu Leonard's and Costco. We can have the slide from
That's
the
in
satellite.
Yonkers.
That's right. And the land in question is that big gray blotch in the center of your screen. They sold this off for approximately $30 million or so. The county is getting about $19 million of it to the developer who owns the Stu Leonard's Costco complex just below it. And
Well, they're going to be using it to put up a target, from what we understand.
that's what the Journal News reported, but this has been apparently a deal for a long time. However, they claimed in their press release, the county did, that they are selling it off because of a $17 million sales tax receipt gap after the first quarter. Now, what they did was, the first 3 months in 2015, the handle was $159.7 million. The first 3 months of 2016, the handle was $162.3 million. That's up 1.6% in receipts, according to the state. However, if they are $17 million down, according to what they budgeted, this means they forecast a 14% increase in sales tax over the first quarter of last year. Just really mind-boggling, and the county legislature approved this very optimistic and gung-ho forecast.
What do you expect them to do? This is the way it works, John.
Yeah, but it's stupid.
But that's the way it works.
It doesn't work that way in White Plains, because we are limited by our charter to keeping the
Well, I don't know if
sales
that's
tax.
by our charter.
It's
I
not
think
the
that's
charter,
state law.
it's state law.
Yeah, well, how does
Well,
that
they
not
didn't
affect
do
the
it here.
county?
You can't anticipate more sales tax revenue than you actually received in the previous fiscal year. That's the
Now,
law.
how did the county do that?
It is in our charter, so we don't do that. But I don't understand why you would even think that
It's
the
state
sales
law,
tax would
whether
increase
it's in our charter or
14%.
not.
14%. But I mean this is just fiscal irresponsibility, wouldn't you say?
No,
In a
I
way?
wouldn't say that. I'd say
Why
that's-
wouldn't you?
Because I'd say that's the way it works, John, when you're doing a budget.
Right. However, you now have
Sometimes you hit your budget numbers, sometimes you don't. But
Yeah.
the
Well,
the
they
objective,
missed this one by
but
a
the-
mile.
Well, but that's
Right.
not the objective. The objective is to do a budget which is acceptable to the various political entities.
it has to have some basis in fact. Now,
Not always. Just take a look at the federal budget. I'm sounding like Donald Trump now.
right. But truly, this was an irresponsible budget to think that, considering that the county sales tax is only going up about 2 to 3% a year for the last few years, that you would get a 14% increase. I mean, come on. Now, White Plains schools told me that they tested their pipes in the various White Plains schools, all 9 of them, and they found no evidence of lead, so we can rest easy on that one.
Well, that's good, because
Yes.
it's been showing up in schools around Westchester and in Rockland County also, and Orange County, especially drinking fountains, where apparently when the pipes were put in, either the pipes themselves contained lead or they used lead solder to make the joints.
Yes.
when
Right.
one
Now, they
pipe is
tested
going
them
to
4 to
another.
6 weeks ago, just in anticipation of this concern. Loucks Field also got public restrooms in time for the Loucks games. And then, the Children's Museum at Playland is now hosting groups, school groups. There's a couple of school buses that were observing that had
At
children
Playland this
attending.
week. Mhm.
That's right. And they so that they are at least showing that they are open to an extent. Now, the bill to prevent eviction of seniors from sustainable living, not sustainable, assisted living facilities is working its way through the legislature. This is in reaction to the Esplanade changeover to rental, which we built them a parking garage to help them do that. But somehow no one in White Plains ever asked, hey, are you going to keep this a assisted living facility? No one asked. So it's a barn door piece of legislation, to say the least. Now, congratulations to Stephen Cohn, who becomes the first man to be president of the White Plains League of Women Voters. And he has done remarkable work in registering youth to vote in White Plains. And that was the press release, so we congratulate him. And I think, once again, it is a very intriguing thing that the League of Women Voters, has men in it. And I guess we should all sort of surge in and start swelling the ranks of the League of Women Voters. Perhaps they should change its name now.
Well, it's always been open to men.
Yes, right. But anyway, congratulations to Mr. Cohn and his great work. Now, Rose Riken, a senior in the White Plains High School class of 2016, she is on the left, her mom is on the right, won a $7,500 grand prize in the Financial Centers of New York competition involving over 50 other students from areas around New York City. White Plains television personality John Verperian had last Sunday, declared John Verperian Day. That's Ben Boykin, the county legislator from District 5, handing John his plaque.
A proclamation proclaiming
right.
the day,
And
John Verperian Day in Westchester County.
Yes. White Plains celebrates the reading of the Declaration of Independence on former Village Green, that's Tibbetts Park, right, on North Broadway, June the 18th. And the Lois Bronze Child's Center celebrates that's the Armory, where the Declaration of Independence was read.
For the first time in New York State,
right.
according to
and
history.
Tibbetts Park is slightly up from that. And Lois Bronze Child Center celebrated 50 years last night. And the Women's Club Jazz in the Gardens is coming up on June the 9th to benefit the grounds of the Women's Club.
And we have to mention the White Plains Arts Festival. That's coming up.
Yes, so it is. It's a very busy month, but we wish you a great Memorial holiday with these activities coming up, grilling, and of course the parade on Monday where we salute our war dead. John Bailey for White Plains Week, Peter Katz, Jim Benerofe. Good night.
White Plains Week has been a presentation of White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com, in cooperation with Channel 76. Comments may be emailed to WPCNR@AOL.com. The copyrighted print White Plains Cityscape by Leonard Weber is used courtesy of the White Plains Presbyterian Church. For information on its availability, you may contact the church at 761-8585. The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented Fridays at 7:30 and again on Mondays at 7 p.m. here on Channel 76. For White Plains Week, this is Seth Benerofe speaking.